UK and France have seemingly embarked on a dangerous mission: escalate the war in Ukraine so much in the next 2 months that it becomes impossible for Trump to douse the fire. And all of this is happening with tacit approval from Joe Biden. Let's know more. Just days after Trump's victory in US, a shocking statement came from the UK. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson warned that UK troops could be deployed to Ukraine if Trump cuts US defense funding for the war-torn nation. Johnson said, "What I'm saying is, for people watching thinking why are we supporting Ukraine? It is because otherwise our collective security will be really challenged by a resurgent Russia threatening all sorts of parts of Europe." Johnson added that in such a scenario, UK would have no option than to deploy troops inside Ukraine. Don't take his words lightly, by the way. He very much represents what the establishment in UK thinks about the Ukraine crisis. Over to France now. This European country is also doing its best to fuel the fire in the next 2 months. On November 15th, Newsweek reported that a brigade equipped and trained by France was preparing to enter the battlefield. The brigade is called the Annie of Kiev. The troops have just completed over 2 months of rigorous training with French military forces in eastern and southern France. These are some 2,000 troops, and mind you, they will return equipped with French supplied tanks, artillery, and heavy weaponry while additional troops undergo training in Ukraine. You never know where Ukraine could deploy them, maybe in Kursk, where Russia is planning a massive counteroffensive, right? There is one more critical question here. What type of training has been offered to these troops? Does it involve how to handle long-range weapons? It is highly likely, and that is really dangerous. You see, the long-range weapons require lots of expertise and training to operate. If UK troopers or soldiers trained by France are deployed in Ukraine in large numbers, it could mean that NATO is attempting to push the war to the point of no return using long-range weapons. It's also interesting to note that Joe Biden last week lifted a de facto ban on deploying US defense contractors to Ukraine. The official purpose of their visit is to repair American-made armaments such as F-16 fighter jets and Patriot air defense systems that Ukraine has been using against Russia. I repeat, it is just the official version. It does not have to be true, right? Now, NATO is trying its best to tie Trump's hands before he takes over. It is in EU's and NATO's best interest to keep the war machinery in Ukraine up and running because it will keep both Trump and Putin busy. EU and NATO know this thing. Once the war in Ukraine ends, the duo will go after Europe ruthlessly. Trump may create new economic challenges, whereas Russia may make security moves. It would be a double whammy for the EU as well as the UK. It is only to add to escalation that the Biden administration is rushing to inaugurate its brand new airbase in Poland just the next week. This is exactly what Putin calls NATO's eastward expansion. The airbase is located near the Baltic coast and had been in works since the 2000s. Now, naturally, Moscow sees this base as a threat. It is another attempt to keep Trump tied to NATO and EU. Trump's victory has unnerved NATO nations. He has vowed to not defend the nations that do not spend enough on their defenses. So while US conservatives are in celebratory mode, they should not forget that Democrats are still in power for the next 60 days. They can still do a lot to damage the world, damage the US, and make things even more complicated and messier for Trump. This is outright criminal, but that is all the deep state stands for.